So I hear a lot of quotings here of Ramana Maharshi's teachings, kindly supporting a certain vision of the spiritual path. And for today, I will bring a little bit of the story of Ramana Maharshi, of his life. Not an expert, just what is there available, but to bring that as uh, another outlook, because that is also a part of his teachings. A master lives the life of the previous life before of awakening as also a teaching. And let's look at it in a more simple way, maybe not the way that those want to give an impression of what he was, uh, but let us look at the story in a more simple way. So he was a normal person, having a normal life. Uh, he was educated, he was going to school, and he had a promising life ahead of him because of his life conditions, of his social conditions. And eventually, he had a spiritual experience, a mystical experience. Some say that he was already enlightened at that moment, but the story doesn't add up like that. Because if there was instant enlightenment, there wouldn't be any strangeness about the experience or doubts about the experience. There could be maybe awe or laughter about the previous condition. How was it possible to have believed that it was the body and I had this life and all of this? Maybe that, but not strangeness with the experience itself, because awakening, uh, that which reveals itself, it is the normal, the ancient, and that which was there previously. It's so new that it really has no existence whatsoever. So this strangeness to that experience shows otherwise. So um, it is more the probability that it was a mystical experience, and it is common to most seekers. There's a lot of seekers talking about this mystical experience, this experience of oneness. And then, as the story continues, he continued going to school but started losing interest, and he was reading the stories of the saints and practicing meditation. We can see this by this sentence of his brother, which determine is going away, saying, what is the use of behaving like a yogi and doing the life of a worldly person? So if he was behaving like a yogi, he was in spiritual practices, practicing meditation and all of this. And this Arunachala uh, had come to him as an insight. This is what is called guidance in this case. And he followed it without any idea of what was coming, of what his future would be. He abandoned the worldly life, he abandoned the life of uh, all the dreams of the character, whatever was there in front of him, he abandoned it. So if this enlightenment had already happened fully, what was there to abandon? But he did, and he followed the guidance, not knowing what for and why, but he just went. And as he finally arrived there, uh, they say he didn't go into any formal of initiation, but he did the initiation to himself. He abandoned, he did all those procedures that it is common, and he took the life of a renunciant. And afterwards, 10 years were spent in deep meditation. Some say in samadhi, doesn't matter, because if it is samadhi, it is dissolving the structures of the character, and in silence, which means very powerful energies were circulating and very powerful work was being done. So he spent 10 years in this intensity of spiritual work and emerged as after he was recognized as Ramana Maharshi. And there's a lot of stories that when he was meditating, he was being bitten by mosquitoes and full of wounds, and he was unaware of all of that. He was completely absorbed in the self. And that is intense spiritual practices, very intense. And afterwards, well, probably know more than I do about that, but everything started to grow around him. An ashram was erected after many years, after disciples and devotees started to come and assemble around him, recognize that spiritual power. Some call him a saint, others call him a guru, others call him an avatar, God himself. But look at the story. He didn't stay and live the normal life and whatever. Like, no, there was a beautiful, inspiring story that still inspires hundreds, millions of people, of seekers. Probably they could have a better inspiration, but that is another subject. Still, it is there. And if he hadn't followed that guidance and being completely unaware of what was coming, um, and what was his life would be, and all of that, he just followed the guidance, Arunachala. He went, not knowing, and he never left there because there was this transfer from his worldly life to his spiritual path and to the life that was connected to that spiritual side of this. The previous life belonged to that character. I think the name was Venkataraman. Then, then it was the life of Ramana, and they were different lives. And as he awakened to his spiritual life, then the other life has ceased to be. If it didn't, uh, all the story that unfolded, all the people that gathered around him, all the people that got inspiration, that got guidance, that got everything, and still are getting, it wouldn't be possible, not in that sense. So everything has a purpose. And someone like that, that comes in that way, uh, it doesn't have a story of its own. It is a story to be told to those who come after and see it and get inspiration from it. And if we look these days, the majority of those who follow the teachings of Ramana, it seems that they are not looking at this part of his story, and probably the only thing, the only way they can touch their teachings is through Facebook postings, and that's all. Because the inspiration is there. And in that time, probably, it was a good idea to cut a little bit all these rushed movements, to abandon everything and go like this. But because it was that magic was present, it was real. These days, that is completely dead. Magic has been lost. But the stories are there. The stories are there. And that is the story of someone who had the process became alive. Guidance presents itself. He followed guidance, not didn't follow a whim of his mind. Uh, he followed guidance, and then the story is there to be seen. And he became uh, a source of guidance and will continue to be. So there's many times that people get similar guidance, and then because of fears, because of insecurity, because of doubts, because of a lot of things, they don't follow guidance. So they just keep on living the story of that worldly character instead of living the epic of that spiritual character, which is much greater, serves a bigger purpose, and takes you to full realization of who you are. And India, for example, holds the traditions of all of this and has preserved it through time. And some of you sometimes go there and watch these renunciants and all of this and bring a lot of criticizing. What is the point of living as a beggar and all of this? Well, that may be true in some cases, but at least they are trying. They are trying. Even if it is just by form, they are keeping the traditions alive. And what are you doing? The magic is available for everyone. Everyone. You just have to reach your cup and take it. Everyone who has a, a spiritual experience, as Ramana did, as many of you have, for example. And there are many ways of being touched by the divine, many ways. But let's just refer to this one, this experience of oneness, for example. How can you look at life in the same way? Because that was not by merit or something like that. That is a divine call. It's telling you, look, that which you are experiencing and the one who is experiencing, it's not real. Let go of that. Come back. So how can you continue to live the same thing? Being open to guidance, being receptive to guidance, praying for guidance. It is the best path. And then following guidance. Because if you just stick with your logic, you go nowhere. You just continue. It doesn't matter if you're going down the cliff with your eyes open or eyes closed, you're still going down the cliff. And if you're just following your logic, logic is the most deceiving thing, especially when the mind is not an instrument, but it is that which is in control. The mind smiles, the heart bleeds and suffers.